Podcast. This your boy Paper Stacks. Here with Mr. Black Ovation from All Things Black Podcast. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, brother, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, man. Trying to make it, man. 2021 just started, so we just about to see what happened from here. For the listeners, I want y'all to know All Things Black Podcast can be found on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. But I'll let him do that. You want to go ahead and plug yourself?
Yeah, man. Basically, I go by the name of Mr. Black Ovation, so that has different meaning to it. Basically, the word is a mashup of different words, like 4 different words. Black being the primary focus, and then there's 3 other words that's attached to that, which is inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Right. So it's all those three things mixed in with the 4th, which is black, where you get the name Black Ovation from. So it just basically means you got black people who are inspirational, black people who are motivational, black people who are innovative, right? So, and it encompasses a lot. So it talks about our historical genius, our present genius, right? And our future genius, So that's really where that stems from. And also there's a clothing line that I do have, which is also called Black Ovation Clothing. Actually, it's a .com, so it's a website where you can go and see a lot of my different, clothing material. And it basically means the same thing. So, from that, what I'm attempting to do is introduce, because words are powerful. So introduce words that, elevate us, right? So when you see the word and you see somebody wearing the clothing, basically that's what they're representing. They're representing our black genius, our black intellect, right? Our inspiration, motivation, things like that. So that's where that name stems from. And also, as you mentioned earlier, there is a podcast that I host, which is called the All Things Black Podcast, which is newly launched. And I cover a myriad of topics, anywhere from black fatherhood to colorism to social media, to education, to finance, right? That kind of stuff. So that's what my attempt is. And again, I just like to help tell stories of black people, black entrepreneurs, black, motivators, stuff like that. And that's really what the podcast is geared towards. And it's actually been doing pretty well since it's launched. And yep, that's basically what you're looking what you're looking at. Okay. And by trade, I'm an audio engineer. Mm-hmm. I did go to school for audio engineering and music technology. I'm also, again, like I said, I'm an entrepreneur, so I got my hands in several different things right now.
Okay. So tell me this: what made you go that route, the inspirational black route?
Well, I grew up in a household that was, predominantly about black people, right?
Right.
And I didn't really get into it until around the age of 16. Like many, I'm one of those, especially or particularly, black men that would go to school and really wouldn't find any kind of fulfillment in what was being taught, right? So I was one of those that I would get in certain classrooms and I would, be one of those. I wasn't necessarily rebellious. It's just that there was nothing that captured my attention, right? So, not that I made extremely bad grades, but again, if you're not paying any kind of attention or anything like that, you're going to make some bad grades. Right. So I was around like maybe 16 years old, and I was introduced to some information and some knowledge that was outside of the scope of what I was being taught in school, right? Mm-hmm. And that led me to listen to, but by the way, you can consider me one of the OGs or whatever, Not
okay.
that you can consider me that. I'm an old head, but I got a young Diddy Bop, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, so I would listen to a radio program which would come on about maybe 11, 12 o'clock at night, which was called the Bob Law talk show. Mm-hmm. It was based out of Chicago. I think it was WGCI who would broadcast it. And it was there that I started to have more of a concept and a knowledge and awareness of where I came from, and who my people are. And that talk show led me into other avenues of knowledge and books and different histories and things like that. So again, at 16, and you got to remember, man, when you're coming up, you are under some of the most impressionable years, right? Especially when you're a toddler and stuff like that, really learning, how to read and, somewhat formulate and articulate a sentence, where mom and daddy can understand it. You're under some really impressionable years. So I would consider, my teenage years still impressionable years. And so all that information that I was, that I was given and that I was shown helped to formulate and form my thinking, right? So it was from that point on that I was just like, you know what, this is it. There's nothing that can pretty much take me off that path. And then there was also an intense love for my people, right?
Right.
So you can't necessarily have just knowledge, just knowledge by itself and not have some degree of passion or some degree of love for your own people. So that is what led me in that direction. And ever since then, it's just really been about my people. And I want to preface that by, I want to say this, after saying that, because a lot of people would take what I'm telling them and be like, well, that sounds a little bit exclusive. That sounds a little bit racist, And I would say to them that, you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else. And that's even on the individual level. If you don't have a true love and knowledge of yourself, you really can't offer anything to anybody else because you don't know how to necessarily love your own self. And that's the same thing with your people. I love my people first and foremost, right? I love them first and foremost. And that love, because I have for them, extends out to the rest of humanity, right? And I think first, for the most part, a lot of us don't have the self-knowledge or self-love to where we can begin to exercise that in our own community first, right? And that's played out in a lot of areas, right? So we don't shop black, we don't spend our money with black business owners. We're quick to cuss each other out. We're quick to, defame our women or say the black women or X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? So it comes out in a host of ways. And it basically just shows that, again, there's a lack of love. Right. And a passion for that love for our own people. So that's where it stems from. So from that, that set the foundation for everything else.
Right. I totally agree with you. The thing is today is, with everything that's going on with the George Floyd, and then we got the Freddie Gray and all these situations or whatever. It may have drew more attention to the problems or whatever, but what I do want to say is that this ain't nothing new. This is something that's been going on for years. I remember when I was 15, I done heard and seen, you know what I'm saying, police brutality and all this other stuff. It ain't nothing new. This is something that's been going on for years. And reason why I bring that up is because, we shouldn't have to sit up here and look on the internet and see somebody get choked out for 8 minutes to love ourselves.
Right.
We got to start realizing, first, we need to start, like you said, realize who we are, where we from, what we did, and all that. Second, we need to start taking more appreciation in ourselves and what we tribute to this nation in a whole. You know what I mean? And to the world, really. You know what I mean? Because, we play a big part in everything. I don't care what nobody say. And this is my thing. I never really went the pro-black route, and I don't even know if that's the right terminology to use. But I never really went the pro-black route because I guess I ain't never had the self-esteem in myself enough to, be able to always. I feel like for somebody to, stand in that position, then you gotta have the right answers. You gotta have the right answers. today we don't have the leaders like we did back in 1950s, 60s. You know what I mean? Today we don't have the leaders like we did back then. It's different now.
Well, I think we do. I just think that our perception of what leadership looks like is off, right? I just think we're looking at leadership in terms of what our leadership looked like in the past, right?
Right. Talk to me.
So I often tell people that I talk to is that because, again, where I'm coming from is a different level of knowledge. And by the way, I'm going to talk about that a little bit first.
Right.
Our activity basically is based upon the level of knowledge that we acquire, right? It's based upon the level of information that we have presently.
Right.
So that is how we go about our life. So it's our activity. So in other words, what I'm saying is to try to, break it down is that if our information only stems from one area, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just say, for instance, most of us don't read books. Let's say, for instance, most of us don't look at a newspaper. Let's say, for instance, most of us don't want to read any kind of periodical online or anything like that to try to broaden our perspective and broaden our information and knowledge, right? So what we end up doing is box up in to what is comfortable. So then we start to act out that direct body of knowledge or information that we are in proximity to. So in other words, if I'm listening to gangster music all day long, right, and I don't balance that out with something else, then all I'm going to do is act out.
Yeah, lean more to that.
Act out, be a gangster. Mm-hmm. You got it? Right.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing on a daily basis, and that's going to formulate or form the level of activity in my area or in my life. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the basis of my activity in my life. But as soon as I begin to, and we've seen this happen all too often, that even in those that are considered quote unquote gangsters, when they have a chance or an opportunity to pick up different forms of information, different books, right? You start to begin to see a change of activity in the quote unquote gangster's life. Right. They start acting a little different, right? Mm-hmm. They start moving a little bit different, right? Into the rank and file, into the people that were accustomed to that gangster living, that quote unquote gangster living that particular lifestyle. They begin to not understand how these people are moving because they're not privy to the body of knowledge that the quote unquote gangster has, right?
Right.
So that's what it's about. I just got through having a conversation earlier, and one of the things I often quote to a lot of people is scripturally. So I don't know how you fare in terms of church or Bible or scripture or spirituality or anything, but I'm one of those that subscribe to that. And I often quote a lot, in the Bible where it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Mm-hmm. It didn't say my people are destroyed for lack of money. It didn't say my people are destroyed for lack of unity. It didn't say anything of the kind. It said my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a lack of knowledge. So knowledge is power. Knowledge is information. Right?
Right.
So the more we're privy to information and knowledge, the more powerful we become. Right?
Right.
Knowledge is inspirational. Knowledge gives you motivation. Knowledge makes you innovative. Right? So again, you're talking about Black Ovation. Mm-hmm. Now it's not necessarily relegated to Black Ovation, but I was just using that just to show you how, when you begin to get information or knowledge, you start to become from what's called a horizontal level to a vertical plane. Mm-hmm. You start to move up, right? Mm-hmm. So you're no longer thinking about, someone who is in predatory mode all the time.
Right.
How can I finesse this person out of some money? How can I finesse this girl out of her body, right? So you stop thinking about stuff like that, and you start thinking about stuff on a higher plane, right? So that's where we are, and a lot of us have not put ourselves in a position to see the level of leadership that is already there. We're still thinking of leadership in the past, like our Malcolm X's, like our Dr. Martin Luther King's, like people like that. And the reason I bring all that other information up is because, there's what's called a paradigm shift that's happening right now. And that's something, that's a whole nother subject that we can actually talk about at one point. But there's a paradigm shift going on. There's an exchange of energy. There's an exchange of power. Right. There's a uprooting of leadership, and there's going to be a replacement of leadership.
Right.
So if that's the case, then who's the leadership that's going to uproot the old leadership and to be the ones who's going to be the new leaders? So that means that tells you and I that there is leadership that is already there. We're just not perceiving that leadership. We're not looking at that leadership. That leadership is there. We're just not looking in the right direction.
Right. I mean,
right.
That made perfectly good sense. My thing is, even when because I done reached out on the internet and all these different places, looking for some kind of, leadership, because me, myself, I'm in a crossroads in my life to where I'm like questioning a lot of stuff. And, I see the problem. You know what I mean? I've even, as I talk to friends, my family, said women in my life, I see the problem that I have, the trauma, the things that I grew up thinking was normal, that was not normal. You know what I mean? And, even I went out looking for these leaderships and, trying to find, somebody, to give me the answers to some of the questions I have. And I done listened to the Umar Johnsons and the Police and all of these people. But I always end up hearing something, because I'm an overthinker. And I always end up hearing something, or something just don't make sense to me. And I'm just not the type to just go with something just because everybody else going with it. You know what I mean?
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? If you so where I'm at now with it is where I've listened to all these people. I took little components from all of these conversations of pieces that I heard, and then I put them all together, and then I created my own philosophy from that. You know what I mean? So that's
and funny enough, no, I didn't do the latter part, but the earlier part that you spoke of, that's exactly what happened to me. So I was one of those that was aware enough to understand, and this was a little bit later on in life. When you go back and because they say 2020 is hindsight, right? And you go back and you begin to reflect on little areas of your life that led you up to the point where you're at now, right? Mm-hmm. And when I went back from the age of 16, where I began to get this information and forward, I started to see that there was people that came into my life, which I call them little angels, right? Mm-hmm. They came into my life and they began to impart knowledge or information upon me, and at a certain time, the information started to germinate, right? Mm-hmm. It started to germinate in me, right? So I began to take the information, at least the information that I can understand, right? The information that I can comprehend, because people always drop something on you that at a certain time it's not gonna come to fruition until an event or circumstance comes up in your life. Right. And all of a sudden your memory is jogged a little bit and you say, damn, I remember what so-and-so said. Now it makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. So there's little crumbs and little patterns of people that come into your life, and they drop these little crumbs and these little gems and jewels along in it, and it might not resonate or germinate that same day, but later on in your life, at some point, it's going to come out. So I said that to say this: even though you might not have found the necessary leadership in an individual, right? Leader in an individual, you're always going to, it's wise that we listen to people that have already been over the road. And what I mean is the people that have paved the way for us. Like for instance, you can go back and you can read about Noble Drew Ali. You can go back and read about the Honorable Marcus Garvey, right? And what he laid out, his program, his plan, right? You can read about You can read about the Black Panther Party, their program and their plan, what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right. These are little seeds. These are little blueprints.
Yeah.
You can go back and you can read. Yeah, you can go back and you can read about. Absolutely.
My bad.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I can hear you. I can hear you moving. I can. I can see you moving. Right. Your wheels are clicking.
Yeah.
But and you can go back and you can read. You can go back and you can read, and this name I'm going to drop right here to me is the most significant of all of those names, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But you can go back and you can read the writings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who founded the Nation of Islam, right? So there's a lot of information in the books that are still made available right now.
Right.
They're talking about an economic blueprint. They're talking about building your own schools, your institutions, your own laws, right? Your own structures. All of that information has already been made available to us.
Right.
Our problem is that we want to pick and choose who we want to follow or what blueprint we want to pick up. To me, all of those individuals dropped jewels, dropped information, dropped blueprints, dropped things that were conducive to us becoming a united people and building upon top of that the foundations that they laid for us. Like I say, sometimes as Black people, we want to choose who we want to feed from.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's fine, but it's supposed to lead you to something. Let me give you an example. When you're in school, right? When you go from first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, so on, right? You may like a particular teacher when you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th grade, right? You may love that particular teacher,
right?
But you can't stay with that teacher, because if you stay with that teacher and you don't move on to the next grade, then you end up retarding, quote unquote. And I hope nobody takes that word offensively,
right? But
you end up retarding. In other words, you end up regressing or going backwards. Because you don't want to move forward because of a particular teacher that you're in love with. You like the characteristics of the teacher. You like the personality of the teacher,
right? And
everything. But that's where you stop. You can't move forward. Okay. And this is our problem with our perception of leadership today, right? So we're stuck on Martin Luther King. We're stuck on Malcolm X. Yeah. We're stuck on these figures and what we believe, they represented or what they did not actually represent. But we can't move forward to see the current day leadership, which is in our midst right now, right? So you're stuck. So you got to move beyond that grade. In other words, you won't be able to graduate if you can't move beyond that grade. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm gonna stick with Miss Sampson because I like Miss Sampson and how she makes me feel and that kind of stuff. So I'm not gonna go to the 6th grade.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit here. So again, you start to retard. You start to regress. You can't make any kind of advancement because you're stuck on that one particular teacher, right? And again, that's part of our issue. What we're supposed to do and what these people laid out for us, again, is blueprints, right? So again, you're talking about the Noble Drew Ali's, the Marcus Garveys, and people like that. They laid out significant information for us to read and study and then go to the next grade. Okay, I've completed this assignment. What's my next assignment? Who else am I supposed to be looking for? What other information am I supposed to be looking for, right? To get me to the next level. And that's what we're stuck at. We're stuck there. Right. All of these individuals that I'm talking about were about the business of trying to accomplish the same thing, which is justice for Black people, economic opportunities for Black people, balanced education for Black people. You know what I'm saying? Housing, good housing for Black people. They were all trying to accomplish the same thing. Stokely Carmichael, right? Kwame Ture. They were all trying to accomplish the same thing. So if they're all pointing to one direction, then who are we to stifle ourselves or to stop our own progress, right? When they were all pointing to the same direction. It was the same direction. It was just a different method. Same direction, just a different method.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. All I'm had the same message. Just a different way of going about it. What stumps me is that at what point did it shift to where the Black community didn't, know what I mean? We didn't rally behind people like that anymore. like to tell the truth, if let's say if we were to have if Martin Luther King were to come back from the dead right now, I don't believe he could do the same thing he did back then. Not now.
Not at all.
Not now.
Not at all. I don't believe that either.
Yeah, because we just mentally not that like you said. I believe we have mentally as a community, a whole as Black people, we have digressed since the 50s. I believe we were in way better shape. You know what I'm saying? As a community in a whole, as within ourselves back then than we are now. You know what I'm saying? Despite of us having a couple that's rich, that's a whole other thing. It was ones that were rich back then. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we still had to fight. And you know, it's just that the fight in the people done is not the same. Like, I really believe, like, okay, you got to think about it, right? It was a point in time in the United States where the Black household was not broken. Yes, it was a point in time where Black men took care of their families and all of that. It was a point in time. You know what I'm saying? Now, we couldn't sit at the front of the bus. We probably couldn't shop at JCPenney's, but that was cool though, because only thing that did was brought the Black community closer together. We were closer together then than what we are now with all the technology and gadgets and everything we got now. I still feel like we were a stronger force back then, way stronger force back then than what we are now. You know what I mean? Because all we had was each other.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. All we had was each other. There's no doubt that if you go back maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago, that for the most part, Black people understood a sense of community, because again, we had to rely on each other. Under white supremacy and structuralized and institutionalized racism, we didn't have a choice. Going back to Marcus Garvey and going back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they said a couple of things that stand out above anything else to a lot of people. So Marcus Garvey would often say, up you mighty nation, you can accomplish what you will. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad would say, accept your own and be yourself. Right. So those are 6 words from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Very powerful words. Accept your own and be yourself. So in other words, accept who you are originally, in your original nature of who you are, and stop trying to become something other than yourself, than your original nature, than your original design. Stop trying to be other than that.
Right.
And I throw that out there to say that we still have not accepted fully the concept of us being the original people.
Right.
We still have not fully accepted the concept of accepting your own and doing for yourself. We have still not accepted the concept of up you mighty nation, you can accomplish what you will.
Right.
And there's a lot of mechanisms in place that derail us from accomplishing that very goal. One is the educational system. The educational system doesn't teach us in an Afrocentric way or in a way that is accustomed to our nature. We're taught in education in a very Eurocentric way, right?
Right. Why do we have a Black History Month? I think that we should always learn Black history. I think the other students should have Black History Month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, the thing is, and what I was getting at was that when he said accept your own and be yourself, and Marcus Garvey said up you mighty nation, you can accomplish what you will, that says that we need to create our own institutions. We shouldn't have to rely on some European education to deliver to us what is supposed to be for us. And I think that's where we're missing the point, because we're still under the assumption that this government, these institutions, this society is going to give to us what is originally for us, and they have not done it yet, and they will not be able to do it. So it is incumbent and necessary upon us to go out and seek these things for ourselves, right? So seek knowledge, get information, put people in places and around you that has maybe a higher level of understanding and wisdom than yourself, right?
Right.
Don't hang out with people. And again, I'm not saying to, try to make, saying this to try to act like you're better than anybody else. But
Right.
again, water seeks its own level. So if I'm in the mud when somebody else is in the mud, how is that person going to bring me up out of the mud if I'm trying to get out of the mud?
Right.
They can't because they're stuck in the mud with me. So I have to have somebody that's outside of that, right? Outside of the mud, to throw me a rope, to throw me a stick or something like that, and help to pull me up out of the mud. That means that person is going to be in a different place than I currently am, right?
Right.
So that's what that means. And sometimes we have to begin to seek out. Pardon me. We have to begin to seek out people that are way more knowledgeable than we are, and allow them to impart that knowledge onto us, so we can go to the next stage of our evolutionary development.
All right.
The next stage of our mission.
Let's talk about how do we do that. I put myself in the situation. Okay, I'm a young black man. Know what I mean? Stereotypical from the hood. Daddy not there. Mom on drugs, the whole nine. Right. All right. What is the first, how do, because that be the problem a lot of times, is that people wouldn't even know the first step to go. Even if they wanted to do it, they wouldn't know the first step to go. And even with the internet and all that, you know what I mean? The internet out and all the stuff, if you don't know where you're going, it's discouraging. It's discouraging. Like I'm sure that it probably done overwhelm people that really wanted to know more, but it's so hidden in the algorithms that it's hard to seek that information even if you want it. So what would be like the first step somebody would go towards that sort of enlightenment if they wanted to do that? Like, what do you tell me being a man, being a male out the hood? I want this knowledge. What's the first thing I do to get it?
That's a great question. Reflecting back on my youth, there's something embedded in your spirit as a black person in this country. There's a yearning from each and every last one of us to learn where we came from, because that was never readily made available to us, right?
Right.
So you begin to see these different, forms of media, pictures and stuff like that in movies that try to tell a story of where you came from, but they don't directly give you the right information, right? They don't directly give you the right information. So with that spirit that is in your person right now, yearning to learn where you come from, you have to follow that spirit, right? I know this might sound a little corny, but you have to follow that spirit. And what I'm saying is that you have to develop the strength to want to go out and gather the right information. And it's not necessarily going to always be on the internet, because the internet is full of noise, right? You can't listen to everybody on the internet. That's why I quoted the people that I quoted before earlier: Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, Kwame Ture, right? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There's books that they already have that are available to us. Carter G. Woodson. You see what I'm saying? There's books like that, 100 Years of Lynching. So if you start to look up these different types of books, right, they begin to tell our own story, and you have the hunger and the desire for that. That's the other thing about it too. Let me say this real quick. When I was growing up, because I'm the same thing for you, man. I'm a product from a broken home, right? I'm a young man, right, trying to find and navigate his way throughout society and the world, so that I could be who I'm supposed to be, right? So I know that life. Now I wasn't into the drugs and the gangs and stuff like that, but I knew of people who was involved in that, and I had plenty of family members that was involved in that. But you have to have the desires. That is the very first thing. You have to have the desire. If you don't have the desire, then all you're going to do is just be like, well, I have the thought, but there's no desire. And desire is what drives the will. So if you don't have the desire to drive the will to want to learn these things, you're not going to do it. That's first and foremost, right?
Right.
And the other thing about it too is that, going back to the analogy about both people being in the mud, you cannot continue to stay in the mud with people that want to stay in the mud. In other words, if I want to seek a certain level of knowledge, well, hell, I gotta let me put it this way. You have a certain amount of hours allocated for you to go to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a certain amount of hours that you allocate towards your family. You have a certain amount of hours in the day allocated towards you doing what kind of whatever activity that you choose that you want to do, right? And there's the will and the desire to do those things, mm-hmm. right? And we do it habitually. We get up in the morning, we punch a clock. We get up in the morning, in the afternoon, we take our break. We call our significant other, we check on our children. There's a desire and a will to do that. Mm-hmm. So my question would be, where is the desire and the will to want to learn about yourself? So you have to allocate time to do that. And that's what I ended up having to do myself. I allocated a certain degree of time to begin to study.
Right.
And I don't care where I was, I wanted to learn. So that means my journey to learn began to lead me on an evolutionary path of discovery. That was the first thing. Okay, so what did I do? During my time, there was a lot of available black bookstores where you can go and readily pick up this information. They had everything that you wanted. It was just nothing but black. Right. So I had the opportunity to go and sit in these bookstores and either read the information or purchase the information. And that's another thing. How much do you want to get free? If you're willing to pay money to go and purchase, let's just say, we're going to use, and by no stretch of the imagination, I hope what I'm about to say, nobody takes this literally, because this is not what this is. But let's just say people that's in the drug game, right? If they can find a way to purchase an 8-ball, right? Mm-hmm. And go out and begin to make money, mm-hmm. right? Then they flip the money that they make and then, go buy more drugs so they can make more money. Mm-hmm. It's the same way. It's the same way with knowledge.
Right.
So you find the money for the drugs to sell to make money. Mm-hmm. The same way you can go out and you can find the money to purchase a book to begin to become knowledgeable. Yeah. And I would say most of us that are in that type of bag, like those that have the entrepreneurial spirit, that have maybe sold a drug or two, whether it's illegal or not, those people, those type of individuals, in my humble opinion, is in a more advantageous state because, first of all, you got rid of the fear, mm-hmm. right? There was no fear in you because, I had to make money. I got to make money to either help mama out, pay the bills. Right. I got to make money to put shoes on my feet. I got to make money to help out with baby brother or sister. So I got to get over my fear and just do it, right? Right. So you got over your fear. Then the second thing was that you said, I want to go into business, right? Mm-hmm. So you already learned somewhat about how to conduct yourself in the business, man. Okay, so then why don't you go ahead and invest some of your money into learning and learning some type of course on how to really blow the business up, or learn a course or pick up a book and how you become a better entrepreneur. Right. So, because it's all about knowledge at the end of the day. The information that we have currently is only going to take us so far. How do you become a better father? Do you become a better father, by osmosis, or do you become a better father because you had a blueprint in front of you? Yeah. Right. You had a blueprint in front of you, or do you go and you read some type of information on how to become a better father? Right. Right. You see what I'm saying? So it's all about knowledge at the end of the day. And I think for the most part, the reason black people are suffering is because, again, we have a lack of knowledge. We have a lack of information, right? We're thinking, okay, well, if I just get me some money, everything is going to be okay. No, because mentally, we're still ill prepared to be able to deal with the new surroundings that we have, right? We end up blowing the money, or we end up smoking the money up, or whatever the case may be. We don't know how to invest the money, right? So it's not just necessarily the money. It's the knowledge of what to do with the money and the knowledge of what my purpose is with the money, mm-hmm. right? So that's what you're basically looking at. And again, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So for me, you have to have the desire. Desire feeds the will. The will is going to make you find the right information, right? That's going to resonate with you. And then it's going to continuously lead you on the path of continuous study. And that's the thing. You always have to be in the mindset of study, because you can get to the fifth grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you stop at the fifth grade, and that means you're only going to be stagnant in the fifth grade, while other people is going to surpass you and go to the sixth grade, right? It's the same thing in school. They hold you back. They call you retarded. They put you in a special education class or something like that, while everybody else is moving on to the next grade, while you're staying stagnant because you either didn't get the information, you weren't motivated, or you just didn't want to move forward.
Right.
And that's where we're at right now. So leadership is available. Leadership is definitely available. There is leadership that is right now in this country that, to me, is the predominant leadership in the country for not only Black people, but for this country, period.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just our perception, right? It's not the type of leadership that's been dressed up and packaged for us. It's that, because 9 times out of 10, the leadership that we are told to have is a leadership that is packaged for us, and 9 times out of 10 is not the best type of leadership for us.
Yeah, I think that one of our biggest problems. I mean, you're right about the leadership ain't packaged in the package that it used to be. I'm more on the lines of thinking that we as people, we look to the wrong people for leadership. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. I love Jay-Z as a rapper, but at the end of the day, would I, put my life on the line for Jay? No. You know what I mean? Like, and then we look to these people in entertainment, you know what I mean, as people to try to, mirror to make our life better. But what that does is what I'm saying is you can't just take that. You can't just listen to that, because even that person is playing a persona. That's not real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then they're limited. They're limited. They're limited in what they can do for Black people. Let me just say outright to your listening audience, in what I've come to believe, what I've come to know, and what I've come to experience. Like I said earlier, when I was 16, I was put on an evolutionary course to get where I am now, and I'm still studying. I'm still learning, because again, pardon me, scripturally, it says to seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, because knowledge is the principal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just think about if Black people had a level of knowledge of farming, right, and domestication of animals, how far we would be if we understood agriculture.
Right.
We wouldn't have to depend upon anybody else feeding us, because we would then have the capital and the necessary material to go out and begin to farm.
Right.
So now we can produce our own apples, vegetables. You know what I'm saying? And if we were eating meat, now we can raise our cows in the right way, where we don't get sick off of eating meat. Right.
Right.
So same thing applies to just about anything else. We're just in a position right now where we're so far behind the 8 ball, and it's not necessarily racism in and of itself, not necessarily white supremacy in and of itself, right? It's because we have a lack of knowledge. We're sold on the idea of America. We're sold on the idea of materialism.
Right.
That if I can just get a job, and I can produce for my family the things that everybody else is producing that I need. So I'm buying as a consumer, right? That people are producing. So there's a difference between being a consumer and a producer. Right now, Black people are consumers. We're not producers. Producers means you have to go to the land. Producers mean you have to do something from the original thing, from the original state.
Right.
Right. So in other words, I'm making clothes. Somebody else is a cobbler. You know what I'm saying? Cobblers are in big demand. You know what a cobbler is? A shoemaker.
Oh, okay.
It's a shoemaker, basically. So how much money do we invest in shoes? Right? How much money does Nike make off of us, right? Because we got to have the latest Jordans and stuff like that, right?
Right.
But guess what? There's somebody that's manufacturing those shoes. They're manufacturing those shoes, right? Somebody is designing those shoes. Somebody is crafting those shoes. Well, guess what? The person that is the crafter, the person that's the cobbler, the person that's the designer is always going to have a job because they have the necessary skills to be able to do all of that. When you and I don't have those skills.
Right.
So all we're doing is concerning ourselves with is when the next retros are going to come out. So I can go spend $250, $300, right? To look like I'm materially successful. Yeah, to look like I'm materially, successful. But at the end, if it ever comes to a position or a point where you become to get, you're hungry and you have nothing else in your house that is worthy to be sold, right? For an exchange for $1, a bowl of soup or something like that. I guarantee you, if it gets down to it, and those Jordans that you have that are worth $200, $250, $200, if it gets down to it and you're hungry and you have to feed your family, you're going to sell those Jordans in order to feed yourself and those families. That's how worthless those shoes are. They're completely worthless. They have worth and value to us, right? Because of what the symbolism is. But at the same time, they are worthless because guess what? In the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, they're going to come out with a different set of retros. Right. So the ones you have are going to be obsolete. So it's the one that's producing those goods that are the ones that's always going to be on top because they're implementing the skills to produce those goods and services for somebody else. This is why it's so necessary for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Marcus Garvey and Noble Drew Ali, and even in this time frame, Minister Louis Farrakhan to be studied. Because they're the ones that are saying, get up and do something for yourself. They're saying, up you mighty nation, you can accomplish what you will. They're saying, spend black dollars with black people. Dr. Claude Anderson is another one. They talk about powernomics and how black people can actually reverse this whole thing if we just have the mindset to start spending our money with ourselves. Black Killer Mike did a
Killer Mike. Damn.
Killer Mike did it. Yeah. Hey, brother, listen. Killer Mike did a Netflix special, and in the beginning and opening of the special, he talked about the recycling of the dollars in each community. Right? He talked about the Asian community. Yeah, man. Yeah. He talked about the Asian community. He talked about the white community. He talked about the Jewish community, and when it came to the black community. Our dollars were never recycled. Our dollars leave our hand within 6 hours of us getting that. So now, what does that tell you? That means we have power. Our problem is that we need a re-education of thought. We need to retrain ourselves to begin to the process of starting to do something for ourselves, and that's the thing, right? So it's a re-education, it's a retraining, it's patterning our habits differently, right? In order for us to become successful, and that's where our whole problem is. Our people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is the principal thing. So if we don't have the correct kind of knowledge, and here's the thing: knowledge is just not obtaining a degree in college, right? Right. It's just not that. But some of the most smartest people are actually still out on the street. There's some people that never went to college that are successful. Right. Right. Yep. So you don't necessarily have to obtain a college degree, right? And in this day and time, a certificate is just as valuable as a college degree, right? So make yourself available to these different certificates, right? While you're going out and doing what you have to do. See, we just don't have the information and the resources. We're waiting for somebody to put that in our face and say, here, right? Here you go. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Right. You and I live in a capitalistic society, and that just basically means that our people are going to capitalize off of your ignorance, right? And become the beneficiaries of your ignorance, right? And they're going to be able to get resources. They're going to be able to get land, material, all of these different things at the expense of your ignorance. There's an old saying that says that if you want to hide anything from a black person, put it in a book, because we're not going to read, right?
Right.
We have been trained against picking up a book. Number one, it doesn't look cool, right? Number two, it takes up the time that we have, allotted for ourselves, because, we become a party type of people. We want to party all the time. Man, give me the loud, you know what I'm saying? Give me the Henny. Yeah. Give me, I'm gonna go down here to the club. I'm gonna trick off about $200-300 on the strippers. You know what I'm saying? So we're in party mode. We're in party mode 100% of the time. And we need to change that from party mode to building mode. It's okay for you to have fun, but what is the building mode? If you're not 75% in building mode, then you're in trouble. Yeah. You should at least be 75% in building mode. What that means is that you should always be constantly thinking about how I can improve myself, how I can improve my family, how I can improve my finances, how I can network with certain people that already have, but I'm trying to get. So that's building mode, right? And we're not in building mode for the most part. And us as black men, and let me say this part, and then we can move on. But us as black men, we have to get to a point, because we're the builders, right? We're the builders and the maintainers of any society. We have to get to a point where we understand each other's natural abilities, right? So in other words, if you're good at, let's just say you're good at communication, right?
Right.
And I'm not good in that, right? I don't look at you with the heart of hatred and jealousy because you can speak better than me.
Right.
I say, you know what? This is a cog in the chain, right? This is a link in the chain that is useful. So I say, okay, well, my brother is good at oratory. My brother is good at speaking. So I'm going to take this person that's looking for something very, specific, and I'm going to introduce them to my brother because he can speak their language. Right. So that's going to move us up. So you might be good in, woodwork, right? And again, I'm not. So I say somebody's looking to get some cabinets built. Okay, well, my brother is good at woodworking. So let me introduce that individual, that person to you because you're good at woodworking. So once we begin to recognize each other's God-given talents and skills, right, and become humble enough to understand that that's not my gift. Right. I'm not good at that. That doesn't make me feel bad about myself. I just not have gotten to the point where I discover my purpose yet in my gifts and my own talents. See, It's the fact that we don't study ourselves and begin to understand what your talents and your true gifts are. It makes us become jealous or envious or hatred of somebody else's gifts, talents, or things like that. That's what causes that within our community. That's what causes that. But when you start to utilize your own gifts and talents, and you start to recognize your own gifts and talents, don't be mad because a sister can sing better than you. That's not your gift. That's not your gift. That's not your purpose, right? Your purpose is something totally different. Let that sister go ahead and sing, man. Let her go ahead and sing, man. Let that brother go ahead and build, man. Let that brother go ahead and make music, man. You know what I'm saying? All of us can't do the same thing. You got a barrage of men. Pardon me. You got a barrage of brothers right now, man, having dreams of making it to the NBA. Yeah. Right? All of us are trying to get all of these skills to become the next, Michael Jordan. Wait a minute. Okay. Is that your natural ability? Is the question. Like, what are you naturally good at? You see what I'm saying? You can practice to become good, but what are you naturally good at? Right. Because it's what you're naturally good at is what you should start to spend the time on. Right. Because it becomes secondhand. It's easy to you. If you're struggling to dribble a basketball, come on, man. Right. Maybe you should think about something totally different. There you go. So what's natural to you? If it's natural for you to to cook and you in the kitchen and you can throw a meal together, something like that. Well, damn, that's it. What that's something to think about. Maybe you can go to culinary school, right? Yeah. To perfect your skills. Yeah. Right, and then begin to open up your restaurant or open up your food truck or something like that, right? Right. So we're missing so many things because we're herded in a way and engineered in a way that we think that all of us should be on the same page. Well, he's a rapper, I'm gonna be a rapper.
Right.
He's a basketball player, I'm gonna be a basketball player.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
We can't do that. That's not what builds a nation, right? That's why when you look at the United States of America, they have these different branches, right? The legislative, the judiciary, and stuff like that, right? So they have these different branches of government. They have these different offices. They got these different counties, and they got these different, mayors and governors and that kind of stuff, right? That's
right.
what builds a nation. That's what builds a nation, man. Those are the things that we need to put into play to begin to build a nation. Agriculture, right? Somebody to enforce the law, that kind of stuff. We need that. And I just think our perception right now and the fact that we're being still fed the lie of integration is what has been holding us back.
There you go. There you go, man. Oh, man. I appreciate it, man. I already inhaled you longer than I say. Hey, man, I appreciate you for stopping to holler at me, man. Yes,
sir, brother. Any time, man. I mean, that's what it's for, because, at the end of the day, I'll say this. At the end of the day, Black people, we have to get into a mindset of serving each other, right? And service is not a sign of anything belittling, right?
Right.
Hell, again, if you look at it scripturally, Jesus was a servant. Even though he was the son of God, right? He was a servant.
Right.
So how can I serve you? How can I help my community? What is it that I can impart to you that's going to help you get to the next level of your evolutionary development? That's where it comes from. So whatever I have, you have, because we're connected to each other in a very unique and distinct way. And we have to begin to start looking at it like that. But that's what the whole of the podcast is about. That's what I'm about. That's what the clothing line is about. And that's what I'm on. And I've been on that path for quite some time.
Yeah, just spread the information, man. We all got to spread the information. I say it all the time in my videos for my audience, man. Y'all already know I'm all about spreading information. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
That's what this whole thing is about. Again, Mr. Black Ovation. Please tell the people where you plug your things again. I like to do it at the beginning and the end. You got to make sure you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So absolutely. So it's the All Things Black podcast, and basically you can find that on Anchor. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify, Radio Public, Google Podcast, Overcast. You can find it on just about any podcast streaming platform. And you can also find me on social media, in Instagram, Twitter, same thing, ATB, AT Black _podcast on Twitter. And then on Instagram, it's the All Things Black _podcast. And that's where you can actually find me at. And there's also a website attached to it. But once you go to the Instagram pages and you go to the podcast pages, there's going to be a link there where you can actually click on the bio and find out a lot more information about me and what I represent and who I am.
All right. Thanks for coming through, man. I appreciate it.
Man, it's all love, man.
Yeah. All right. Everybody, that was this segment of No Emotion Podcast. Y'all can check this out on the YouTube, Instagrams, whatever. Till next time.